The National Football League Players Association has made a very important decision. More than 2 weeks after the abrupt resignation of Executive Director Lloyd Howell, an interim executive director has been hired. There were a lot of names that were making the rounds. There were different directions in which the union could have gone. At the end of the day, what they did, they went back and hired the guy who finished second out of two in the competition that resulted in the hiring of Lloyd Howell. David White, the former SAG-AFTRA executive director, who, along with Howell, were the only candidates presented to the Board of Player Representatives in June of 2023. They didn't know going into the meeting who the candidates were. The rank and file had no idea who either candidate was until it was all said and done. Howell won. White lost. Now White replaces Howell. And I'm conflicted on this. And I've heard there's already pushback within the union that there's a belief that they shouldn't have gone back to a selection process that, based upon everything we now know about Howell, things that emerged and didn't emerge during the vetting process, there's concern that why would you go back to a process that has proven to be a failure and take the guy who finished second? There are so many other potential candidates out there, and there's a feeling that the union needs to turn the page on what's gone on the last 2 years. My concern is that, especially the members of the executive committee, because I think they are really running the show. I know the Board of Player Representatives did a vote. They did it virtually last night. Every team was represented by either their primary rep or an alternate, so all 32 teams had a voice in this. I think the executive committee has a lot of power here, and I think a lot of that mindset that J.C. Treader brought to the organization lingers. And it's this: let's keep it secret. Let's ignore any outside scrutiny. Let's turn the tables and attack those on the outside who are trying to provide a little sunlight to the process. And we know what's best for us. And we're going to double down when things go poorly. We're going to continue to resist acknowledging that we made a mistake. Never admit you made a mistake. Always attack anyone who attacks you, instead of taking a step back and doing what's right for the organization. That's my concern. What's right for the players, what's right for the organization, and what's right for the sport. Because I firmly believe there needs to be balance between labor and management. If it gets too far out of whack, it sets the stage for chaos, possibly in the form of a strike. We assume the players are never going to strike. Well, at some point, the owners will push the players so far that they'll have no choice but to strike. And I'm concerned if White ends up being the permanent executive director, and I've got a feeling he's not taking this job as a 6-month thing, a 9-month thing, until they find somebody else to run it. He's probably going to be interested in taking over unless he comes in and he looks around and he says, screw this, I don't want to run this. This place is too messed up. But if he does have designs on running it, is he truly the best person to stare down the owners? It's 5 years away, the next CBA conversation. The league is going to want 18 games. The league is going to want 16 international games per year. The league is going to want, I firmly believe, based upon things Roger Goodell has said, unprompted, he said them back in May, I think the league is going to want to reduce the percentage of total revenue that goes to the players. And there are other issues that need to be addressed. What's going to happen with this collusion grievance? For example, business is happening on a daily basis. The new leader needs to get up to speed quickly, and the new leader is going to be dragged down by questions about the fact that he finished second to Lloyd Howell. And there's other stuff too. Pablo Torre mentioned it when I was on his podcast last week. Stuff that dates back to David White's time with SAG-AFTRA. We may be writing something about it at PFT. They needed a clean break from anything and everything that happened before. I talked to somebody over the weekend that said the entire executive committee should have resigned. The board of player reps should have resigned. They need a fresh start. They need a clean sweep. And the same body and a lot of the same people who hired Lloyd Howell over David White are now installing David White as the fallback to Lloyd Howell, instead of just rejecting the entire process that served up Howell and White. Again, it's their union. It's their business. But I think anybody who's got a vested interest in the broader business of the National Football League wants to see the union not be like this, not easily pushed over, not stubborn, too stubborn for their own good, because God forbid some pencil neck geeks on the outside, like me, might disagree with the way they're going about doing things. Now, maybe there's an art form to getting them to understand, to persuading them that maybe things need to be done differently. And I don't know what they needed to do. I mean, they should have hired Mark Murphy, the former Packers CEO, because he was in the room where the collusion happened and everything else the owners have done for the past 18 years. But I know what they shouldn't have done. They shouldn't have gone back to a process that was hopelessly flawed, that gave them a massive problem. You don't go back there and say, let's just hire the guy who finished second to the guy who had to resign one day before the story came out about strip club expense report misadventures that had happened reportedly at his prior job that reportedly didn't emerge when it was time to vet Lloyd Howell with the NFLPA. For more, I'll defer to the 3 episodes now that I've done with Pablo Torre on Pablo Torre Finds Out. And my biggest concern is the fact that they hired David White. It's going to result in a 4th episode. And I really don't want to do another episode because it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. It's a lot of talking. It's a lot of stress. But I got a feeling that's the direction we're going to go because I have real concerns, and I know Pablo does too, about the direction in which the NFLPA is now going. The story will not end. Even though football's back and most of you would rather watch football and focus on football, it's very important that there's balance between the league and the union. And my biggest concern is that balance is going to be thrown hopelessly out of whack in the coming months and years. That's it for now. Check us out around the clock for updates on all things NFL and NFLPA at ProFootballTalk.com. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.